editor of subtitles N. Giacomoldina, 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 editor of subtitles. In centimeters, the height, this is the height of the slope, the height to the slope of our hood. The width, half of our hood. So, the width of the hood will be 50 centimeters. Plus 2.5 centimeters for these folds, which we will knit for the drawstring. After calculating our knitting density, we will need to start the actual knitting. We will begin from the neckline, that is, casting on stitches along the neckline, and knitting the raglan from top to bottom. Before that, we will need to knit a back rise. A back rise is a small extension at the back. Mine is quite small, about 2 centimeters I believe. I have separated this into individual lessons. I have a theoretical part and a practical part on knitting the back rise and raglan from top to bottom, specifically for this sweatshirt. Therefore, I will not explain this now, please go. Watch these lessons. They are in the links below the video, the theoretical part, and with this the practical part. And after that, we will meet. We will continue knitting. After we have knitted the back rise, we have reached this point. We finished 3 stitches of the last of this sleeve. Here we stopped. What do we do after this? We have knitted 6 rows of the back rise plus the first row, the one we do not count. After that, we stopped here. What do we do? We knit to the beginning of the row, making 1 more increase here, before the raglan line. That's it. We reached the beginning of the row. Now we will knit in the round with raglan from top to bottom. So I transferred all our data to another sample. To make it clearer, so we ended up with 96 stitches. After the back rise, we added 6 stitches to the back. That makes 31 stitches. In front, there were the 31 stitches, and on the sleeves, we have 13 stitches each. The beginning of the knitting is right here. And it remains the same now. We are moving on to knit the raglan. We will knit in the round. You can watch for yourself. You can make increases in every second row, as increases are usually done. But I have made it a bit longer, like the bodice. Look at how I did it. I knitted 2 rows straight. In the next row, I have an increase on each raglan line, before and after. 2 rows straight, then a row with an increase. The next row is straight, and the following row is with an increase. And I repeated all of this 2 times. In total, I knitted 10 rows and then knitted 2 more rows straight, so I ended up making fewer increases than if we had made them in every second row. So here are my results. 128 stitches, with 21 stitches on each sleeve, 39 for the back, and 39 for the front, the beginning of knitting. As always, is right here. This means that the number of stitches for the back will always match the front. The sleeves will also be the same. It is important to keep an eye on this. After knitting several rows, 12 rows past the growth, I knitted about 4 centimeters here, and we start to shape the bear pattern. Now I will show you. I'll insert the pattern so it will be easier for you. Once I started the pattern, I was knitting, making increases in every second row, not as here, but in every second row. We will knit the pattern using the intarsia method, even though we are knitting in the round. We will turn the work. This means we will have right side rows and wrong side rows. All odd numbered right side rows will have increases, while all even numbered wrong side rows will be knitted without increases. So we will alternate a right side row, turn the fabric to the wrong side, and knit our pattern. We begin with the odd numbered row. The first row will have increases. So, look at how we knit the first row. Here we have settled. Now we knit with knit stitches. We knit the back, making increases at the raglan lines, plus 1 increase in the middle of the back. There are 40 stitches on the back, just like in the pattern. the arm, making increases at the raglan lines. We reach the front, we knit the first row of the pattern, and the first row of the pattern. Here I have printed my pattern. Here I've printed my pattern. Here, we start to knit our pattern in this direction from bottom to top, right? So from here we knit at the front of the pattern, additionally adding 1 stitch in the center of the front, so that there are also 40 stitches at the front, just like in the pattern, just like in the pattern. And I knitted to the last stitch in grey, and turned my work, meaning I didn't finish the pattern. I didn't finish part of the front and I didn't finish the sleeve. Here, I turned my work in the first row. I'm already starting the second row, which is even. I am knitting in the opposite direction, that is, over here, the front again, and in the opposite direction. So look, in the second row we turn our work here, and knit the pattern like this. But at the beginning of each row, when knitting the inters, yes, we do not knit all the stitches at the beginning of the row, these pattern stitches, but simply transfer them to the right needle. Then we transferred these stitches. Then we knit everything else and down. Reach back to the front. We do not make increases at the raglan lines in the second row. We reach the front, and at the end of the second row, we knit this pattern, the pattern stitches. But here's the peculiarity, that in the second row we start from this place, we transferred the stitches, do not knit the pattern. Then here we do not make increases, we just knit purl stitches. We reach the old beginning of the row. I am talking about the second row. Here, our second row continues. We knit purl stitches, but now we make increases after the raglan line. Here's an increase after the raglan line, here at the front, and after this raglan line. These are the 3 increases. Here, here, and here we will make. Because we didn't make them in the first row, we didn't finish. So that the number of stitches matches, meaning the sleeves would be the same, the back and front would be the same. That's it. In the second row we made increases only here, here, and here. At the end of the row, we knitted according to our pattern for the bear. We reached the end of the second row. It is already here. We turned the work again and moved on to the third row. Next, the third row and the following will be easier. It turns out that in all odd rows, we will have increases everywhere in the knit side. And in all even and purl rows, we will not have any increases. Here, I have redrawn and shown schematically what I got after 2 rows. Here, I have 23 stitches on the sleeves, since we added, making increases on the raglan lines of 2 stitches on each sleeve. For the back, there are 42 stitches, and for the front, there are also 42 stitches. Here, in addition to the 2 increases from the raglan lines, we added 1 more stitch, so that the number of stitches for the front and back matched the number of stitches in the chart. That's it. Further from the 3rd to the 26th row, we knit in the round. Also using the intarsia method, as I told you, turning the fabric in each row. Here are the odd knit rows with increases. The even and purl rows have no increases. And we need to ensure that the stitches for the sleeves are always the same, and the stitches for the back match the stitches for the front. And here is the main feature of knitting intarsia. What I have marked here is a note for myself, and this will help you too. At the beginning of each row, we slip the chart stitches and do not knit them. And at the end of the same row, we knit this pattern. We knitted the chart stitches, not at the beginning, but at the end, we knit them. If this explanation is unclear to you, and you have never knitted or do not understand how to do intarsia, I have already knitted a pullover with a heart. If you are subscribed to my channel, then you know, right? I also did the pullover with a heart in intarsia, both in the round and with turning rows. Here we need to knit intarsia in the round. Therefore, I will also ask you to go to that masterclass and see the principle of working this intarsia. The link will also be below the video. After I knitted 26 rows of the pattern, for the 27th and 28th rows, I simply knitted straight, without increases, and out. Stopped on the knit row, specifically in the knit row, the 29th. I joined the front and back to connect them here. I set aside the sleeves in order to knit just the body down further. In the 29th row, when I separated the sleeves, we had the raglan line. One stitch went to the front, well, or to the back, and the second loop of the raglan line connects to the sleeve. And after separating the sleeves, take a look at how many stitches I had. I have 49 stitches on each sleeve. I transferred them to a spare yarn and tied them in a knot. This is to keep those stitches from getting in the way. And then we will knit the sleeves separately. So, I ended up with 68 stitches for the back and the front. Also, after we separate the sleeves, we add stitches for the underarm. My underarm stitches are quite small. I hardly made any. I only added 2 stitches, though I probably should have added more. But you can decide, based on the width of the body. If you need, for example, to add a bit more width here, or for the sleeve in general, it's probably better to make a few more underarm stitches. Well, in general, I made 2, and so I added 4 stitches, so we connected the front and back. Right. So, we added 4 stitches. 2 here and 2 right here. Altogether, 68 stitches for the front, plus 68 stitches for the back, plus 4 stitches for the underarms. This gives us 140 stitches around the bust after separating the sleeves, right here. 140 stitches. After we separated the sleeve, we continue our pattern around. So, from this point, we knit just without any increases using the method of knitting 140 stitches in each row. Here, we have, in the pattern 66 rows, we knitted the pattern, we knitted 66 rows. Now with the cream yarn, right here. In the round, I knitted 22 rows, about 7 centimeters. After knitting 7 centimeters, we need to switch to ribbing one by one. That is, we take smaller needles, number 2, 75 I have, and knit ribbing one by one. But in the first row, we need to make decreases. I made decreases. I decided that to make the ribbing a bit narrower, I would make 8 decreases. Well, that's what I decided. 8 decreases in a row, meaning I had 140 stitches in each row. Minus 8, which means it should result in 132 stitches. I need to make decreases for the stitch count. So look, I had 140 stitches right here in each row. I divide by 8 decreases, as I decided to remove 8 stitches. This gives me 17.5. Then I subtract 2 from this amount, so I get 15.5. And I write down 15 stitches decrease. But since I have a half, I will take 16 stitches. I will knit those 15 stitches, and then I will knit the next 2 stitches together, making it 16 stitches, and I will decrease 1 stitch. Here, I wrote it down, all in parentheses, and I will repeat it 4 times. Why 4? Because I needed to repeat 8 times, but since I take 15 out of 16 stitches, my count reduces by half, so here I write 4. I will end up with 132 stitches. Thus, I will decrease in the first row of ribbing. After getting 132 stitches, I simply knit one by one ribbing. I ended up with 15 rows of ribbing, which is about 4.5 centimeters. Similarly, you can close the one by one ribbing. It involves closing in pairs, 2 knit stitches together, and 2 purl stitches together. There will be a link under the video. That's it. We finished knitting, and we have it without sleeves. Next, we start to knit the sleeves. Before knitting the sleeve, we need to measure with a tape measure the circumference of the arm at the top. we measure right from the armpit like this. I measured on the child, not on the fabric, but on the bare arm. I got 17 centimeters. Then I added about 8.5 centimeters to the 17 centimeters for a loose fit. And I ended up with 25.5 centimeters. I need the sleeve to be here. And I multiplied 25.5 centimeters by my knitting density. I have 2.1 stitches per centimeter. This means 54 stitches. That's what I need here. Next, we measure the circumference of the wrist. The wrist circumference is measured right here. I also measured by my son's arm. I got 12 centimeters. And for a snug fit, I added 7 centimeters. You may have slightly different numbers here. As well as here, I have 7 centimeters. So I added, resulting in 19 centimeters I need. So that here we have this width, the circumference rather. I multiplied 19 centimeters by my knitting gauge and got 40 stitches. So I should have 54 stitches here, and by decreasing the sleeve, I should end up with 40 stitches, that is 54 minus 40. I need to remove 14 stitches as I knit the sleeve. These are the calculations I made. Next, I also measured the length of the sleeve. I measured from the armpit to the wrist on the child, this length. I ended up with 29.5 centimeters. 25 centimeters for the sleeve itself, plus 4.5 centimeters for the ribbing. I also multiplied this resulting number by my knitting gauge. That is, how many rows I have in 1 centimeter. 29.5 times 3.2 equals 95 rows in total. I need to knit to get the sleeve of the desired length. And here, I wrote out the length of the sleeve itself. I multiplied 25 by my knitting gauge, 80 rows. Here, we need to knit the ribbing as well. 5 centimeters multiplied by 3.2. This results in 15 rows of ribbing. Next, how will we make the decreases? We will have 2 decreases. I roughly outlined it here to make it visually memorable. So, at the center, right here under the armpit, we identify 1 central stitch. We simply knit it as a regular knit stitch. To the right of her and to the left of her, we will be making decreases. Before this stitch that we have highlighted, we will make the decrease as follows. We knit 2 stitches together frontwise through the front loop. Next, we knit this central knit stitch straight. Yes, after it, we will make the decrease like this. We turn the 2 stitches around with the other loop forward and knit them together frontwise through the back loop. We will knit the sleeve in stockinette stitch in the round without a seam. Yes, as you have already understood. Here, we will have 1 central knit stitch and decreases will be on both sides. Our needles are 3.5. That is, the main needles that we used to knit the whole sweatshirt. So look, after we transferred our sleeve stitches to an additional thread, we had 49 stitches. And since I counted that I need to initially get 54 stitches, I will add more. Text for processing, I will cast on 3 stitches at the beginning. At the beginning of the row, and at the end of the row, having knitted 1 row. At the end, I will add 2 stitches. In total, in the first row, I will add 5 stitches, so I will have 49 plus 5 stitches, which will be 54 stitches. After we have reached the desired width of the sleeve here at the top, we need to make decreases and get 40 stitches. How you make the decreases is your decision here. You can make the decreases evenly, so our little sleeve decreases evenly. But I will show you how I did it. So, I had knitted 6 rows according to this pattern, meaning I knit 1 row straight, the second row has decreases. That's how I knitted. Repeating it 3 times, it turns out that I had 3 rows with 2 decreases in each row. 3 to 2, 6 decreases over 6 rows, so I decreased 6 stitches, and I got not 54 stitches, but 48 stitches after these 6 rows. Then, I knitted 2 rows straight, 48 stitches, knits in the round, then I knitted 36 rows according to this same pattern. I knitted 8 rows straight, and in the 9th row, I had decreases. I repeated this 4 times, and it turns out that I had 4 rows with 2 decreases in each row, 4 to 2, 8 decreases I made while knitting 36 rows of the sleeve. So, it was 48, minus 8 decreases, I ended up with 40. Here, there are approximately 40 stitches. And further, I knitted 35 rows straight with 40 stitches in each row. In the last row, 80, I used a new color, this beige, and switched to the beige text for processing yarn. After that, I changed the needle to size 2.75, and I knitted the ribbing to the height I needed. I ended up with 15 rows of 40 stitches in each row, and then I simply closed it with a needle, just like I closed the bottom. And that's it, our little sleeve is ready. We are also knitting the second sleeve. After we knitted the sleeves, we have to knit the hood. First, we have the neckline here. We cast on 84 stitches to create the raglan. So, we take smaller needles, the ones I used for the ribbing, which are 2.75. And we start knitting in a cream color. First, we knit a false placket. I also have a lesson on false placket. Look for it below the video. I explain in more detail how to knit these rows. So, with the false placket, we knit 3 rows straight. And in the 4th row, we will have increases for the hood. And how many increases we need to make, I will show you using a toy. On this toy, so it's clear and visual, so I don't have to draw anymore. Look, we have cast on the necessary number of stitches for our neckline. Yes, here we have knitted the raglan line. We cast on 84 stitches in my case. And I decided that I needed to add stitches for the hood, but how many? I measured this distance, that is from the neck. From the edge of the neck to the edge of the head protrusion, this distance. I estimated with a measuring tape, it came out to 5 centimeters. Therefore, I decided to add 5 centimeters to the width of this circle, thus increasing my hood. So, I multiplied 5 centimeters by my knitting gauge. This is how many stitches I have in 1 centimeter, which is 10.5 stitches. I need to add a hood. And I multiplied by 2. Why by 2? Because we measured this distance only on one side. This one, and we have the same knife on the opposite side as well. That's why we multiply by 2. I multiplied by 2, and it resulted in 21 stitches. That means I need to make 21 increases. And to my circumference, which was the stitches we originally cast on before knitting the raglan. There were 84 stitches here. We add 21 increases, and it turns out we need to have 105 stitches after the increases. 105 stitches that we need, I divide by 21 increases that we will make. And I get 5 stitches. Right now we are calculating the formula for the increases. Divided, and it resulted in 5. I take 4 stitches, knit them straight, and then I make an increase on the 5th stitch. And I repeat this 21 times since I need to make 21 increases. 4 plus 1 equals 5, 5 multiplied by 21. Results in 105 stitches. In the end, we will have 4, not counting this increase, multiplied by 21. Results in 84 stitches, those that we had originally, so, after making the increase, we will get 105 stitches. After we knit the turtleneck, and added the required number of stitches for our hood. We begin to knit in stockinette stitch. I already took the needles I used for the main fabric. Mine are 3.5. Next, we will need to separate our fabric right here. Yes, at this point, to separate. So that we can continue knitting in rows. So, in the first row with 3.5 needles, we knit with knit stitches. We knit to the center of our hoodie. There, we identify a stitch and stop. And here we also need to cast on the required number of stitches for this fold, this one. So I knitted up to here with knit stitches. Let's say, yes, I stopped here. And from the wrong side, right here, I used a hook to grab those walls and cast on 5 more stitches. Specifically from the wrong side, so that my edge is already secured, it would have been possible to just add 5 stitches, but I decided to grab them from the wrong side. To avoid having those 5 stitches sticking out like this, I immediately cast on 5 stitches here. Why 5? Because I decided that my fold would be about 2.5 centimeters. Look. 2.5 centimeters I multiplied by my knitting gauge. I got about 5 stitches, so I cast on 5 stitches right here and then turned the knitting. Next, I began knitting. With purl stitches, I knitted back to this side and also picked up 5. Edges on the purl side, I added 5 stitches onto the needles. In this way, I secured the start of my fold here and right here. I ended up with 10 additional stitches, 5 on this side and 5 on the other. As a result, I now have 115 stitches on the hood. However, these 5 stitches will fold over, so the width of our hood did not increase. Next, we knit all odd rows with knit stitches and all even rows, like the second row. With purl stitches, that is, back and forth, in turning rows. After I knitted these 2 rows and added 5 stitches here, I knitted 3 rows straight in turning rows with stockinette stitch. I have 115 stitches in each row. After that, I made these holes for the lace. This was in the 6th row for me. The 6th was a purl row for me. How did I make them? Yes, it's quite simple. I knitted a yarn over, then 2 stitches together purlwise, since in my 6th row it was a purl stitch. So starting from the purl row, I knitted 7 stitches here and then made the hole. I knitted to the back side, made the hole, and I had 7 stitches left here. I knitted them purlwise. In the next row, we will knit these yarn overs so that a hole is formed. We want the hole to look like this. We fold it, and it should be centered here. After we made these holes, we simply continue knitting straight. We knit in turning rows. With stockinette stitch, this fold is not fixed yet. It is only secured at the start. I knitted 63 rows straight with 115 stitches in each row. After we have knitted the necessary height of the hood, we adjust our count in the last row. That is, we either remove or add 1 stitch. It's probably better to remove 1 to ensure we have an even number of stitches in the end. Time, with 115 stitches. In the last, 69th row, I made a decrease right at the start of the row, and I ended up with 114 stitches, an even number. Why do we need an even number? Because, after knitting the required height of the hood, we begin to shape this slope. For this, we will connect the hood like this, in half. Here, the number of stitches must be even, so that we can close the hood evenly like this later. In 69 rows, this is approximately 21.5 centimeters. I knitted and then started shaping the slope. The slope measures about 6 centimeters. That means I will knit 19 rows here while also creating a rounding like this. At 70 rows, having reached the required height of the hood here, we highlight. So, we fold our hood in half. Here we highlight the 2 central stitches and begin to make decreases, just like on the raglan line, until we reach these 2 central stitches, decrease. Then we knit the 2 central stitches as normal knit stitches. And after these 2 stitches, there's also a decrease. So, I have written down how I made the decreases. Look, in the knit row before these 2 central stitches, I turned 2 stitches. I knitted them together through the front loop. After the 2 central stitches, I knitted 2 stitches together through the back loops. This is in the knit row. In the row, if we need to make decreases before these 2 central stitches, we make a decrease. First, turn the 2 stitches and then knit them together through the back loop as purl. And if a decrease is needed after these 2 central stitches in the purl row, we simply knit 2 stitches together through the front loop as purl. I wrote this down so that you can just open this part of the video and watch it while knitting. And here I wrote down after how many rows I made decreases. First, I made a decrease in the 4th row. That is, I made a row with a decrease. Then I knitted 3 rows straight. I repeated this once, okay. And I have 1 row with decreases. So there were previously 114 stitches. 2 decreases in a row resulted in 112 stitches in the 3rd row. So first, I had a row with decreases, then I knitted 2 rows straight. I repeated this once. This means 1 row with 2 decreases, and I ended up with 110 stitches. Next, I alternated decreases in every 2nd row. I knitted 1 row with decreases, then the next straight. I repeated this 4 times. So, I had 4 rows with 2 decreases, totaling 8 decreases. There were 110 stitches, minus 8, resulting in 102 stitches after I had knitted 84 rows. Then I repeated this 4 times, making decreases in every row. 4, 2, 8. 102 stitches became 94 after 8 decreases. After we shaped the slope, we knitted up to this point, and from here we start sewing our hood. We sew with a knit stitch, stitch by stitch. For this, we needed an even number of stitches. This seam is practically invisible. After we closed the hood and made this seam, we need to sew this fold to the inside. Initially, it is sewn here. We cast on stitches, 5 stitches here and here. This fold is fixed at the bottom, and along the entire length of the hood, we need to simply sew it with the same creamy thread to the hood. After sewing, next we need to knit a hollow cord I-cord. Using needles, I have a lesson. You'll find the link under the video. And we knit a cord of the required length, pulling it through our opening. Yes, and I just made some pretty knots at the ends here. And that's it. Our hood is ready. We still need to knit such fluffy ears. We knit them with grey fluffy yarn, using needles 3.5, the same needles we used for the entire fabric. So, the ear is knitted from the bottom up. First, we cast on the required number of stitches. Then, we gradually decrease, and finally, we close the ear here at the top. We make decreases in the usual way. We knit 2 stitches together knitwise, because the fluffy yarn here makes it completely invisible how we made these decreases. So, in 1 row, I will have 4 decreases. Again, I am showing you my notes to make it easier. Look, here is this ear and 4 decreases. That is, we will highlight 2 central stitches here, and 2 right here. Here is the ear. We will highlight 2 central stitches right here and 2 here. We will make a decrease before these central stitches and a decrease after these central stitches. That is, here and here. Also, on the reverse side, 2 decreases, so, look, I cast on 40 stitches, and started knitting in stockinette stitch. I cast on 40 stitches. Then I knit 2 rows straight, with 40 stitches. Then I knitted 1 row with decreases according to this pattern. Here, I have 4 decreases in this row, and then 1 row straight. So, I started alternating, having knit 5 of these repetitions. 5 multiplied by 4 decreases in 1 row equals 20. So, there were 40 stitches minus 20, which makes 20 stitches. Here I am. It turns out, I knitted here 10 rows and made 20 decreases. After I reached 20 stitches, I knitted the next row with decreases and ended up with 16 stitches. That's it. We reach 16 stitches, and we connect the 2 sides together like this and sew the ear up with 8 stitches. Yes, that's right. And we simply sew them with a mattress stitch, just like we sewed this hood, and we also knit the second ear. We attach the ears approximately on the 24th stitch. If we count from the hood, from the start of this, from the attachment, yes, from here, we count. And on the 24th stitch, we sew one side of the ear. Then we attach the ears not to one stitch, but we make them a bit hollow. Look from the reverse side, it's clear. We skip 2 rows here. The second side is sewn on the 27th stitch. If you look visually, the ear is attached approximately at this level. That is, not in the middle, but a bit closer to the front. After that, we still have to embroider a name, or here, you can write the word love, or whatever you want on this board. I have Tima. I embroidered this with a milk-colored thread. If you have never embroidered and do not know how, you can easily find it on YouTube. Just type in embroidery on knitted items, and you will easily find a simple way to do it. So we stitch the name, we attach the eyes. Here is what I used. The eyes have a safety attachment. We trimmed this little nail a bit. My husband helped me, and sanded it down. In general, nothing here is prickly, and it seems fine. But if that worries you, you can simply glue half beads instead of the eyes. Next, we stitch the nose, eyebrows and claws. There are 3 claws each. They are not very visible here because of the fluffy thread. 3 here, here, and on the lower paws as well. We hide all the threads, and that's it. Our hoodie is ready. I hope you understood everything I talked about here. If you have any questions left, ask in the comments. We will figure it out. And I wish you happy knitting and hope everything turns out well for you. Goodbye, everyone.